What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Intermedia, and today you guys are going to be getting another Invincible video of me glazing it for probably like 10 minutes because I think, and I've thought this for a very long time, that Invincible is one of, if not the best, superhero story ever told in the comics and TV, just in general, just with how great it is. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys some reasons as to why I think that, and also why it's so unique to other superhero projects. But with all that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below what your thoughts are on Invincible, and if you agree with me, disagree, you're kind of in the middle on it, let me know and let's dive right into the video. So Invincible is very, very well known, whether it's from the comics, whether it's from the TV show, just overall, it's a very, very beloved very, very beloved story and a very beloved character, and I think that Invincible has tackled some amazing storylines and amazing themes that maybe some superhero projects touch on, but they don't really focus on it like Invincible does. And it's just really, really enhances the experience and the uniqueness that you feel for this story. It also manages that classic feel of the superhero responsibility, like with Spider-Man, where you have to save the world, or you want to hang out with your friends, you have to choose, but you ultimately choose to save the world. It has a lot of that, and especially in season one in the early stages of the book in Invincible, and it just does that so well, and it really gives you that sense of familiarity, but it also tells a whole unique spin. Because when it comes down to the themes of this show and of the comic, it's ultimately about, is killing okay if it's necessary, and do you want to be the guy who saves the world, or do you want to be the hero, which is a big, big theme that we had in season 3 that we're finally starting to touch on, and Invincible constantly dabbles with the idea of, is killing okay just for this one person who has done so much damage and caused the death of so many lives. And it's a really, really great concept that we do see some characters go through in other comic book projects, like maybe Batman or just over other Marvel heroes or DC heroes. But it's just, they do it in this show and in this comic book so well, to the point where it really, really feels unique. Like, it's not just copying from another story. It really separates itself on its own when it dabbles and really, really leans into these themes that other superhero projects touch on, but maybe don't 100% focus on as much as Invincible does. And the way they handle them and the characters that they bring in to help handle them really, really just makes the story feel so impactful and like real in some ways too, because it genuinely, they touch on the death and everything, so it really makes the world that you're living in feel real while also having Mark Grayson be invincible. And it also does a really, really great idea of tackling the ideas of second chances, which we do see a lot also in season 3, where we see Cecil is basically rehabilitating all these villains that are kind of, were obviously villains before, but they're repurposing them and seeing if they can change their lives around and try and help the GDA and everything. And we see that, and we see the way that that very much has happened in Marvel and DC projects and comic books. And I really just feel like they just cut to the chase, or they're going to take down whatever organization is doing that, whatever important organization is kind of trying to save people by rehabilitating villains, and they just take it down, and they don't really focus on the actual idea of, is it the smart choice to do, which is what they do in season 3 and the book and everything, in the whole story of Invincible. And it is done so brilliantly. And Cecil, you do make some dumb decisions when it comes to this stuff, especially in the end of season 3 where you keep Conquest, but he is right, I think, and it's very, very hard for me to admit that, because they've done such a good job of dividing us and dividing their two point of views to making it feel like maybe Mark's right, maybe Cecil's right. I feel like Cecil's right though, but they do such a great job with that stuff. We also got to talk about the way that redemption is done in Invincible and its story, because Omni-Man's redemption arc is my favorite redemption arc that we've seen in any kind of superhero project of all time. You guys may not have seen it, we may not have seen it fully in the show yet, but in the comics, I went from absolutely hating him, like when we first got introduced to him and everything, because I had already seen the first season before I started reading, so I knew it was going to happen, and I already didn't like him. But as the story went on, I grew to like him so much more, and I actually feel like he redeemed himself, because there are a lot of people who have seen the show that say Omni-Man has no redeeming factors. That is going to change once we start to see his actual redemption arc go into play, because it's only just beginning from here. And you could also say that that sense of redemption is also there for Mark as well, because when we get the brilliant and beautiful and just so great Powerplex episode and the whole Powerplex storyline, which is one of my favorite episodes and one of my favorite pieces of superhero content that we've gotten in recent years. My third favorite Invincible episode. They really make Mark feel like he has to go on some sort of small little redemption arc to redeem himself from the damage that he also caused in Chicago during season 1. And I really love how that's done, how the blame is kind of on Mark, but he knows it's not fully his fault because he was trying to save everybody. But he also kind of has to go on this little redemption journey that I love how they just kind of planted him there without making it too obvious, but they did a really great job with that as well. And we're going to touch on Powerplex a little bit later. And there have been murder mystery and just mystery aspects to a lot of Marvel and DC projects. Like with Winter Soldier, you have the mystery aspect of who is the Winter Soldier up until it's revealed it's Bucky. You have in Watchmen where there is a literal murder mystery plot going on over the whole entire film and the whole entire comic book run. You have a lot of that stuff in comic book media now. And the whole idea of the murder mystery thing with Omni-Man in season 1 of Invincible in the first half of the book, it is brilliant to me. And although you do know that he did kill the Guardians, it's still such a great third person murder mystery story to see the other characters go on that I think is one of the best we've seen overall for any kind of story, because the way the characters find out, the way the build up that you have, the anticipation to the inevitable fight that Omni-Man is going to get in with Invincible, it is so well done. And regardless of if you're watching it, reading it, you feel that suspense and you know that it is going to be epic when everything comes to a close, and it is just so paid off so well. And I think that it is one of the best mystery ideas we've had for a comic book ever. And I know I'm mentioning the show and the book a lot, but I had to talk about the show for a second and say that the show for Invincible takes some elements from the comic book and just elevates it and makes me love the universe so much more. Like, I'm going to give you guys a small example here. During the Conquest fight in season 3 in its finale, Adam Eve barely got anything to do in the comic book. She just was able to put up one wall, and then he just punched her. But in this, she got a whole entire fight scene, and during that scene, I was so happy that they did that, because it was just great to kind of actually take the time to show us that Adam Eve can hold her own, unlike in the comics where they don't. And that makes me love the show more, but it also adds so much to the overall story of Invincible that makes me love it so much more. And this is something that I think like the end of the Batman kind of does, and Captain America Civil War does, where it really shows us the collateral damage that the superheroes cause when they're in these big fights and everything. And they touch on it in those projects, but they don't really talk about it much else. In Invincible, that is totally different. They constantly talk about it. It is a constant weight on Mark's shoulders, and you really genuinely feel that, because he is a person trying to do the right thing, and he is there has there have been other heroes, but there has not been somebody like Mark who is just carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders and is trying his best to save everybody, and while also having that weight of all the damage that he has caused, even though it's not fully his fault. It is so well done, and it is touched on in Marvel and DC and stuff, but definitely not to this extent, because it is something that is constantly brought up in Invincible. And in a way, the Powerplex episode is an example of that, because Mark is going to the memorial for the Chicago thing that happened with him and Omni-Man when they finally built it, and then we see Powerplex come in, who is a guy who lost his sister and his niece during that battle, and Invincible actually tried to save them, and he was the one that was the arm that he had in season 1. And that, and having that whole story play out and having the blame be on him, I feel like was such a great look into Mark and his views, and actually viewing this whole situation in a different way. And I think that it just added to the weight on his shoulders of it. And although he doesn't mention it every single second in Invincible and in the story, you can feel that weight on him sometimes, even when he doesn't bring it up. And I just really love how that is a present feeling that the hero constantly feels, that is touched on more than it is in other projects. And everything that I mentioned is done in a very, very familiar way to make us remember that this is a comic book project, but it's also done in like a unique way as well at the same time, which is really weird to say because it's done in both a unique way and a familiar way to just put us in this state of mind that it is a comic book project, which I just think is so great. And I think that it is just awesome. And the only reason I say that this is the best superhero story ever told is because we have stories like Spider Man that are kind of all over the place and are different stories every time. And they're kind of like A to B villains that we get some awesome stories, but there's just one singular story that just is going on throughout Invincible that is always connecting itself back to the main narrative, which is the Viltrumite War, Mark's conflict with how he's handling saving people and protecting people, having all these reoccurring characters come in and play roles in the story. And we get that in Spider-Man and comics, Batman comics, Superman comics, but nothing ever really feels as cohesive and singular as the Invincible story that we have. And I think the biggest comparison I can do is the MCU, where they have this one cohesive story, which was Infinity War, that they were building to, but also having some side stories here and there, but that ultimately always connect back to the Avengers films that we're leading to. And I think that as one cohesive singular story that is spanned upon over 70 issues of comics, it is the best one. And it has one of the most satisfying conclusions for a comic book project, in my opinion, ever. And I am very much looking forward to seeing that come to screen, probably in like 10 years' time, because it's going to take them forever to get there, considering where we're at in the books right now. But I just love it so much, and I think that it is just great. And the final thing that I'm going to bring up is that we get to see Mark struggling with his morals and what he really believes in throughout the whole entire story of Invincible. And then when we finally see him get to that calm point where he accepts what he has done and who he is and what kind of person he is in that very moment, it is very satisfying, and I think that is a very, very great conclusion for his story. And it is one of the most well done character arcs. I mean, Invincible has a lot of fabulous character arcs. I think my favorite one is 100% Omni Man's. I think that his redemption and character arc that we see and are seeing currently in the TV show is so great. And I think a lot of people are going to be realizing that they actually like him again once we get to his full redemption arc, because it is just great. Guys, I'm going to stop yapping now because it's been about like 10 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on this video. Do you like it when I talk about this kind of stuff? And let me know your opinions. Do you agree, disagree, kind of in the middle? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.